may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, y'all showed so much love to the last wide receiver rankings video. Of course, we are going to be coming out with another one. And just in case you were unable to see the last video, I went through and I talked about our top 6 wide receivers ranked for the 2021 season. I will recap it in just about 30 seconds. Going to give y'all a quick spoiler warning. If you want to go through and you want to hear more about those rankings and you don't want just a quick summary, make sure you pause this video right now, go watch the one that was uploaded last, and then come back and we'll be able to continue going, starting at wide receiver 7. But also, another disclaimer, these are not dynasty rankings. Y'all know that I love dynasty fantasy football. We were one of, if not the first dynasty fantasy football person on YouTube about 2 or 3 years ago. I want to say now that's what this channel started as. But no, these are not dynasty rankings. These are just for 2021 with what I'm expecting out of these wide receivers, and their production has nothing to do with their dynasty value, has nothing to do with their long-term outlook. So let's go through and recap our top 6 so far, where at number 1, we had Tyreek Hill. At number 2, we had Stephon Diggs. At number 3, Devontae Adams. At number 4, DeAndre Hopkins. At number 5, Justin Jefferson. At number 6, A.J. Brown. So yeah, not going to talk about those at all. If you want to hear the explanation behind those, go to the last video. Here we are going to be starting it off at number 7. And before we start it off, what are you doing? Drop a like on the video. Leave a comment telling me how dumb I am for these rankings, telling me what you would have, because I extremely appreciate it. I promise you that. And yeah, that's it. Let's get into it. And our number 7 wide receiver for the 2021 season is going to be Calvin Ridley. And I'll say, yeah, there are a couple things here with Ridley that are not fantastic on his profile. On his profile, he is not going to have elite quarterback play this upcoming year. We know that is something that we always need to worry about. If you're going to be drafting a mid wide receiver 1, you have to go, okay, if they're not going to have elite quarterback play, they need to be fueled with volume, and we can't necessarily just rely on efficiency, because Matt Ryan has been incredibly inefficient over the past 2 seasons, where here I am saying I don't know if Matt Ryan is going to be the quarterback for Atlanta this upcoming year. I think quite possibly we actually see this team go out there and we see this team invest into the quarterback position in the NFL draft. We know that they have one of those picks where they could walk away with a Justin Fields, a Zach Wilson, a Trey Lance, a quarterback in that range that falls to them. And on top of that, we know with Calvin Ridley, last year was the first year that we saw him actually surpass Julio Jones. And that's something I wasn't expecting. I was expecting 2022 to be the year that Calvin Ridley kind of took over as the number 1, but it happened a little bit earlier. So we go, okay, if Calvin Ridley has proven so far in his NFL career that he can out-target Julio Jones on a game-to-game basis, and he's the younger wide receiver, I mean, he is definitely going to have to be ahead of Julio. And here what you love with drafting these Atlanta wide receivers is this is a team, even if they invest into the running back position, they are never going to be a highly efficient running football team. They are always going to be leaning on the pass, as their defense is one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. And since Kyle Shanahan, they have not had a decent running scheme that they can kind of go to slow down the game. This is a team that's going to be in a ton of shootouts. This is a team that is going to concentrate its targets to its top 2 wide receivers. So for that reason, we're going to have Calvin Ridley in here at number 7. All right, so now coming in here at number 8 is going to be the most polarizing wide receiver for anyone this year. He was the number 1 wide receiver last year coming into the year, and this is Michael Thomas. Okay, so with Michael Thomas, yes, he was extremely disappointing. But we can excuse it away. And I know y'all are going to say, but Mason, I mean, did you not see that he was active and he was seeing literally 10% of the targets that he had the season prior in terms of his targets per game? And yeah, guys, I saw some of those duds. And what that tells me is Michael Thomas was rushed back. Like, if Michael Thomas came back to the Saints and we saw him ending up averaging, just say, 20% less targets, say he was averaging 80% of the production that he had in 2019, in 2020, then we would go, is something wrong with Michael Thomas? Is Michael Thomas just not the same wide receiver? Was that an outlier year that he had in 2019? But when he comes back and he is going games with getting less than 5 targets, that is a giant red flag. And that's not raising a question of going, oh, did Michael Thomas have a season in 2019 that is just a complete outlier on his profile? Is he just never going to be able to get back to that? Is he just a bum wide receiver that was propped up with slants? No, you can't ask that when you see that sharp of a drop-off. When you see that sharp of a drop-off, really the only question you can ask is, oh my God, what is going on with Michael Thomas? How injured is he? Because that ankle was clearly bothering him. And if he was playing on a team like the Lions, like we saw with Kenny Golladay in his hip injury, I think Michael Thomas would have probably just taken the year off. I don't think he would have even came back. But we know that the Saints were making their last push with Drew Brees. So Michael Thomas needed to come back. Michael Thomas needed to play. And he ended up paying the price for doing so. So please, 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 those games that we got from Michael Thomas after his injury, do not be hyper-focusing in on those, going, this is who Michael Thomas is. Michael Thomas is most likely about 90% of the wide receiver that he was in 2019, who was historic, who was breaking all-time records. I think Michael Thomas is a safe projection to be a top 10 wide receiver, even with a quarterback change likely for New Orleans. I will say that if Jameis Winston comes in, I actually like that for Michael Thomas. And I know a lot of people are going to say, but Mason, that makes no sense. Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And yeah, Drew Brees, obviously a much better NFL passer than Jameis Winston. But what we've seen from Jameis Winston throughout his entire NFL career is that he is going to provide a ton of production for every wide receiver in his offense. And that's because he is that D-gap quarterback. He doesn't care if he's going to throw a pick six. He is going to be getting it to his number one target regardless. And if Jameis is the quarterback in 2021, that number one target will be Michael Thomas. Okay, so now let's go to our next wide receiver. And we're going to keep this very brief because we already talked about his teammate. Let's go with Julio Jones here at number 9. Now, obviously, Julio is one of the most impressive wide receivers of all time. If not a top 5 wide receiver of all time, I think we can all agree that he's at least in the top 10. But Julio Jones is also 32 years old. Julio Jones also was outplayed by Calvin Ridley last year. So I think now is the time we are going to see Julio Jones starting to slide. If you would have asked me to rank my top wide receivers last season, if y'all remember, I had Devontae Adams at 1 coming into the year. Then we had Michael Thomas at 2. And then we had Julio Jones at 3. I mean, I was still right up there with going Julio Jones is that elite level player. But because of the age, because Calvin Ridley is passing him on the team target totem pole, and because the quarterback play is not going to be elite, it's going to be very hard to rank Julio any higher than 9. I think that maybe this is even a little bit too high, given the fact that he does have the downside of just completely falling off. All right, now let's get to our next wide receiver. I know that we are going to get so much hate for this ranking. This is where everybody's going to be screaming at me, telling me I'm stupid. But like I said, I don't care. And this is going to be DK Metcalf. Okay, the reason I have DK Metcalf here at 10 is because I'm recording this on March 5th. Okay, so as of now, there are heavy rumors circulating around Russell Wilson and his future as a Seattle Seahawk. And I know a lot of people want to come out here and say, Mason, don't think Russ is leaving Seattle. Russ is going to be 100% staying in Seattle. There's nothing that can change that. And I'm saying, well, yes, I think Russ is most likely staying in Seattle. I think he is probably 60 to 70% sure staying there. I think there's also a decent shot. I think that there's a 30-40% chance that Russ ends up leaving. And what we end up seeing from this team is we end up seeing them decide to try to reinvest into the defensive side of the ball with whatever assets, whatever draft picks they end up getting for Russ, bringing in more of a game manager quarterback and leaning on the run, leaning on the defense, and trying to get back to the Super Bowl that way. We've seen time and time again that that is what Pete Carroll wants to do, despite whatever his personnel is. That's what Brian Schottenheimer got fired for, in that he was trying to let Russ cook at the beginning of the year. Russ threw some interceptions, and we saw that Pete Carroll didn't like it. He went, hey, buddy, we are going back to run, pass, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I am very worried with the volume that we are going to see from DK Metcalf. And he's been able to overcome the fact that the overall passing offense hasn't had that much volume lately. And that's because Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. That's because he's one of the most efficient passers that we have ever seen. So if he is out of Seattle, I think DK Metcalf plummets. And that's why I had Metcalf here at 10. Like, if you would tell me, Mason, Russell Wilson is 100% going to be in Seattle this next year, DK Metcalf would probably slide up to number 7 right behind A.J. Brown. But if you tell me, Mason, Russell Wilson was traded, then DK Metcalf would be falling outside the top 12 rankings. So here, right now, when we're kind of stuck in limbo, we're going to have him at 10. All right, so now let's go to our next player, someone that I'm going to be a lot higher than consensus on. And this is Mike Evans coming in here at 11. And there are a couple things going on here with Mike Evans. First off, we know with Mike Evans, he is one of the most consistent producers season to season that we have ever seen at the wide receiver position. I mean, just 1,000-yard season, 1,000-yard season, 1,000-yard season, 1,000-yard season. It doesn't matter. You know it's going to happen with Mike Evans. And on top of that, I think there's a chance Chris Godwin is not in Tampa Bay. I think what we see from Tampa Bay is they either decide to franchise tag Chris Godwin, which should be actually an affordable, I think, $16 million this year, if I'm remembering that correctly, or they decide to invest that money on the defensive side of the ball, liking what they've seen from Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller, thinking, you know what, Tom Brady's going to be another year older. He doesn't need a weapon that he may not be able to get to on the boundary. Maybe we just move on from Chris Godwin, make sure that we have the best defense in the entire NFL, and try to run it back that way. And if that happens, I mean, Mike Evans is just going to be skyrocketing in value because he will be the go-to guy in the end zone every single time. And on top of that, we know that he'll be the alpha, number 1 wide receiver on a team that is most likely going to be above league average in their passing volume. So Mike Evans, he's been consistent, up to date, and there's an outside chance that he gets a bump up in target share with no Chris Godwin. So here we are going to have Mike Evans at 11. All right. So now our last wide receiver coming in here at 12, another player I'm going to be higher than consensus on. It's going to be Amari Cooper. And here this is pretty much coming down to, is Dak going to be good to go in Dallas in 2021? If you told me right now, hey Mason, Dak is suiting up week 1 of the season, then I would go, okay, well, we got to reevaluate Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is going up. Because if you look at this Dallas Cowboys offense, whenever Dak Prescott was healthy, it was right up there. It was more productive than the Chiefs. It was more productive than any other offense in the entire NFL. If you looked at his yards per attempt, it was absolutely ridiculous. And I know a lot of people are going to be saying, Mason, CeeDee Lamb is the wide receiver 1 in Dallas. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's a fair point. I think that in Dynasty Fantasy Football, CeeDee Lamb is the wide receiver 1. But I'm not expecting him to take over as the wide receiver 1 for Dallas in their target share until next year. Because, yes, I know CeeDee Lamb was a great prospect. He was my wide receiver 1 going into the NFL draft last year. But Amari Cooper was even a better prospect, so please get that out of here. Amari Cooper was a top 5 NFL draft pick coming out of Alabama. Amari Cooper is still extremely young. He's still in his prime. He has the contract. He is going to be their solidified number 1 target. So yeah, we are going to have Amari Cooper coming in at 12. Now that's it. We are going to go through and we are going to finish ranking our top 24 wide receivers later this week. So if you want to make sure that you are going to see that, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and most importantly, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. Then you'll know when our rest of season wide receiver rankings come out. Now, thank you guys, and have a great day, and I'll see y'all with the next video.